pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit pod smash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
America, America, it's our America episode.
America.
We are Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and the idea we're talking about this week is, if you haven't guessed it already, we're talking about America, because this episode is airing on July 5th, which is the day after the American Independence Day, July 4th, and so we wanted to talk about America and video games, and just give a little bit of love towards our home country. And
if there was ever an episode for Hamilton quotes.
Absolutely, 100%. It should be Hamilton. We should just sing Hamilton right now. All right. So you may be suddenly realizing that the sound quality probably sounds a little bit different. I don't know if it's better or worse. Hopefully better. But we are in person for the first time since the last time we did an in-person episode was our interview with Reclaim Arcade.
Mr. Tim Owen.
With Tim, and I remember it being warm when we did that. Maybe I'm crazy. Was it cold? Was it during the winter? I don't know. It's been a good while, though. Yeah. And even then, that was like a one-off.
Yep.
And we've been remote for the better part of the last year and a half. So this is like familiar, but also unfamiliar at the same time because it's been a while. So hopefully it sounds okay to everybody. Hopefully I can still get away with things that I want to get away with editing, because it's different this way than it was with Zencastr. But either way, yeah, we're going to talk about America, and we're going to be talking into mics next to each other for the first time. So
yeah, we had a real tink.
Momentous.
We did that?
Yeah.
Do it again. It's just like...
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah, anyways, we are Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer, and this is the first time again in a long time that we are sharing the same beer. So,
we have
what beer are we drinking?
Long-awaited gift beer from friend of the show, Sean. Thank you so much for this beer. But this is Firestone Walker's Anniversary Ale from 2019. So every year they come out with an Anniversary Ale, and this has been aging in my fridge since 2019. So it's been, I don't know what time of year it comes out. I do believe it's in the fall, so it's a year and a half aged. I would say almost 2. But their bottle it's limited release 23 Anniversary Ale, and I like the beer before glory.
I love that.
It's really cool.
Yes.
Firestone Walker, but they have a scroll, and there is a wall of text on this scroll that I'm not going to read because that'd be the show.
Right. Yeah.
But on the other side, it does go into what this beer is, and we like to talk about what the beer is. Mm-hmm. So instead of like a cheeky can that we're reading, it's actually like a cool story and a description. So about the blending. So this is actually an Anniversary Ale, is a blend of beers.
Got it.
Every late summer, so there's the time frame, right? I just said, I think it's in the fall. It is. Every late summer, right before the wine harvest gets rolling, our local winemaker friends come to the brewery to help blend our annual Anniversary Ale. Winemakers are practicing experts in the art of blending, and we realized early on that they could provide invaluable input for creating a seamless beer out of numerous barrel-aged component ales. The winemakers come for both the challenge and the camaraderie. They split up into small teams and create their own preferred blends from the provided components. Each of the resulting trials is then blind tasted by the entire group, and votes are cast for the winning blend. The victorious team walks away with bragging rights and with a set of coveted cardboard crowns. It's pretty funny.
Nice.
It's a very prestigious kind of like,
I love coveted cardboard crowns.
Yep.
I mean, I would want one if I were working there.
This beer, 2019's 23, is these. You can go ahead and list them off.
I'm going to list them. Oh,
what are they?
They are, the final blend consists of the Sticky Monkey, aged in bourbon barrels, the Parabola, aged in bourbon barrels,
nice, yeah.
Bravo, aged in bourbon barrels. All these are aged in bourbon barrels. Bourbon Barrel El Dorado, and Velvet Merkin, and the last one is Tequila Barrel El Dorado, aged in tequila barrels.
I've had some of those. Those are some high quality beer. I can't believe
they're all okay. I'm just gonna go back down through the list, the same list I just read, and just list the ABVs.
Yeah.
10.4 ABV, 14.4 ABV, 11.5 ABV, 11.5 ABV, 9.0 ABV, 11.9 ABV. Does it say how much this single beer is?
This one is 11.5.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
The blend is 11.
That sounds like about average based on what I just read. So, all right, let's taste it. What do you think?
Let's see. Wow.
That is smooth.
That's ridiculously smooth. You can smell.
Oh my gosh, it tastes like a graham cracker on the back end.
Mm. You can like some of the beers that you just read, like individually.
Yeah.
They have a high boozy bourbon barrel front smell and taste. It just blows you up with bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
This is completely
No,
balanced.
this is not. This is sneaks up on you, kind of.
This has the smell of something from bourbon barrels,
But this doesn't taste like
have
something
that,
that's
like,
11. It doesn't taste that boozy, which normally I like, but in this case, I'm like, we just had, we recorded a live episode as well, and we had whiskey with it.
Yep.
And I'm like, so I'm already kind of flush with the taste of strong alcohol. This masking it makes me like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I'm into that. This is drinkable. Yeah, coffee. Like I said, I'm getting kind of graham cracker. Like it's almost got that kind of like sweet but toasty. Toasty is what I'm looking at. It's very
good,
toasty.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. This is awesome. So thank you, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
This is an amazing beer. I'm glad
Thanks,
we sat with
Sean.
it for a little while because this is worth it.
Word.
And spoiler alert, we have the 2020 on deck.
Yeah.
Also, thanks to Sean.
That'll be
so
for our
200th
episode.
2 episodes from
Is
now.
it Are we doing it for 200th or our 4-year anniversary? Because those are both coming up.
Oh, that's a good. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
I was thinking of 200. Like it's a big
Yeah,
deal.
200 for 2020.
But
Yeah.
then you're right. Our 4-year anniversary. That's
That'll
coming
be
in the
like
fall.
what? 50. Sorry, not 58. 52 episodes in a year, right? Because they're 52 weeks.
Times 4.
So 52 times, yeah,
208.
208.
Yep.
I suppose that would be far enough. That would be like 2 months away from each
Yeah.
other.
Mhm.
So we could do both,
Maybe we'll do it then.
but different beer for each one.
Right.
But we're in person again, so that's what I want to spend
Yeah.
our time talking about a little bit, because we already talked a little bit about it. But we're in person. I didn't want to do it. I'm not going to lie.
So you have a drive.
Yeah, I had to drive. I have to
Yep.
drive back home. It
Yep.
basically eats up my entire night. I don't get to watch shows with my wife. I usually squeeze one in before we record, and it'll cut into my gaming time. And I'm a selfish creature. But I'm also a very extroverted creature. So now that I'm here, I'm like, yay!
This is amazing.
Wow, I can look you in the eye.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
I also, again, I mentioned, I hinted at earlier, there's some advantages to recording over Zencaster. It separates the tracks. My mic doesn't pick up what your mic has.
And vice versa.
So, it makes it really easy to kind of edit things. And I remember editing the Reclaim one and being like, oh, man, I've lost some of those advantages. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
Like, in the past, it would always be one of those things where, if you sneezed into the mic while I was talking, I would still edit it out, and you could kind of still hear it on my end in the background, and that's probably what will happen. So again, your audio, I don't know, I would be really interested in having feedback from the listeners as to what sounds better. You can literally compare this episode with the episode we just did on death and hear
I will do that.
audio quality difference. And I would love to hear feedback as to what people prefer, because we're in person.
Yeah.
And this is
Awesome.
how we used to do the
People.
podcast every week.
Every week.
For 150 episodes or something like
Yeah.
that.
And we would
it wasn't...
switch back and forth for who drives to who.
Yeah. It's not going to happen anymore
Right.
with my baby. Not for a while, at least. I mean, at some point, my son and daughter will be sleeping they'll be co-sleeping in the same room, and which will free up my office again. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
I'll have to come to you, or we'll have to record remotely.
Which we'll probably do a lot of remote stuff.
Exactly.
This
isn't.
Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. It works, and we like it, and there are advantages and disadvantages to both.
The biggest disadvantage, no option for getting Taco Bell together.
That's true. We're getting Taco Bell tonight.
Yeah.
Yo.
It's going to happen.
That is a huge disadvantage. Yeah, so that's kind of setting the expectation. We are going to be back and forth doing remote recording still. So there'll be some episodes that we'll be doing in person and some episodes we'll be doing remote, and that's mostly my fault because we are in the final stretch. We are in the final countdown. My wife is 36 weeks now.
So close.
And my son was born at 37 weeks.
Yeah.
So
you are in any day now territory.
we are literally in any day now territory. I could have to drop this recording in the middle of
That'd be great.
and have to go attend to my wife in labor.
I will keep the show going.
That is a possibility. That is entirely a possibility.
Yep.
But my prediction is that she's going to be late this time.
Ooh.
I don't know why.
Second child.
I based that on
usually.
nothing but sheer guessing and experience. We had a friend who had a kid who was our mutual friend Colby had a child that was, shout out Colby, had a child that was early, and then her second child was like, she was riding up on that, like, have to be induced. 42 weeks or whatever. So 42 weeks they typically want to induce. My wife is going to want to do everything in our power to induce that baby beforehand. That does not require chemical induction or hormonal. Is it hormonal? I don't know what it is.
Whatever Pitocin is.
But we're close. Yeah, whatever Pitocin is. But we're close. We're close to that. Again, we're close to, it can happen at any, we're in that in any time now stage. But I'm personally predicting it's going to be late. So I'm predicting an August baby because the due date is July 24th, which is close enough that if she's late by a week or two.
Termite's birthday.
It's August.
It's going to be great.
24th?
No.
Oh.
29th.
Oh, that's your guess? You're guessing for your birthday?
Yep.
See, I'm a selfish creature, and anytime someone's got a baby that they're have due close. In fact, my my cousin just had a baby, and it was born on my birthday, and I'm like,
you can't share that day.
No, it's mine. Get out of here.
Can't share it. Get out of here. I'm gonna be like, Penguin, we're gonna play some arcades for my birthday, and you're like, nope, it's my daughter's birthday.
Daughter. Exactly. You don't want that.
And I'd be like, well, see you next week.
It depends. If you had like your 40th birthday, my daughter would only be.
Would you jump out of an airplane?
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about doing that for my 40th.
It was really random, but like, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's jump out of an airplane.
Kind of thinking about jumping out of an airplane on my 40th birthday. We'll see what happens. It's a long ways out. So
the question is, who do you want to jump out of an airplane with?
You don't get to pick the first time. You have to go with like a trainer.
No. I mean, like, who also do you want?
Well, I assume there's
strapped to trainers.
There's so few people that I know in my life that would say yes to that I just would ask everyone and see who says yes, and that's who I'd go with. It wouldn't be like,
see what sticks.
I desperately want this person, so I have to get them. It wouldn't be like that. It would, because that person might not want to. You know, I'm gonna be that person if for someone else. But if anybody's willing,
if you want to jump out of a plane with Termite, we're having a.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. That's still something I got to deal with.
You tell me the day and the week, I'm ready to jump out of a plane.
All right.
Right now.
Dang.
I'm a bit of a adrenaline junkie. Just a bit. Like
Just a
not
little bit.
as much as like.
I'm also a mini adrenaline junkie because we love roller coasters.
Ooh.
And we have to go to Kings Dominion soon.
Oh, you want to go on Monday?
Which one? This Monday?
The day after.
4th of
actually,
July?
the episode this airs. The day this airs.
Oh, we can't.
Ah.
It's my son's birthday.
All right, that's some good banter. Gosh, we haven't had like in-person banter in a while. I think it's more natural. It flows.
It does.
Yeah.
And so like over the computer, I talked about this on our live show, but now I can reiterate it here. It's like if we talk at the same time, I hear the algorithm kind of like doing some things where it feels like I'm cutting you off. Now I know on the back end it's recording us both separately.
Right.
And so on the audience's side, it's fine. But I feel like personally, and this is the same with Zoom or Google Meet, Zoom, Teams, whatever. It's like those live meeting interfaces that we've lived with for the last 14 months, 16 months. It's so annoying when two people talk at the same time.
Yeah.
Someone always gets cut out, and I feel like that's happening. And so now here we are next to each other on the same table, and if I talk at the same time you talk, it doesn't get cut out.
You can still hear what I'm
still
saying and understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so nice to have those organic. There's no internet delay either.
Yeah.
So it's real time. There's no lag.
It's almost like human beings were meant to interact face to face.
No, we were meant to look at ourselves in a little feedback camera and talk on the internet. No, there was like I'm referencing an article that my wife talked to me about, and I know no sources. So I can't cite anything. I'm sorry, I'm an ignorant idiot. But there was something to do with like the psychology of seeing yourself while you're interacting with others. We're never meant to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you're in an interview setting or if you're like in a really professional, something you need to be like on kind of.
Sure.
It's really a detriment to our psyche to see ourselves in that situation, and it changes everything. And it's a whole like thing. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
I know. I'm always looking at myself when I'm
talking.
See myself on the screen. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Including when we're streaming. Like when I'm streaming, I'm like, ooh, look at me. Let me just tilt my head up so that you can't see my double chin.
Yep. Yeah. It's like you're always checking in, right? It's like, oh wait, the lighting here, or the glare. I need to sit. I was doing it on a live show. I was like, is my arm over here? Like, am I sitting up straight? Got good posture? It's a whole thing.
Yeah. It's wrong. It's wrong. We didn't evolve this way.
We're supposed to lounge around a table and drink fine wine and eat a charcuterie and interact over serious conversations.
I could eat some charcuterie right now. Man, I want some cheese.
Yeah. Some meat.
Meat and cheese.
America.
All right, America. So eating cheese and talking about America is our favorite thing, but also
we can sing in person together. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
We were so excited. We were both dancing. And we were so.
Yes, my wife probably is cracking up in the other room.
Yep. Oh man, that's
wonderful.
Funny. We were so excited.
We always do that. You do and I do. And
then, we get to do it all the same time in sync,
time.
and I don't have to sit there. Yeah, no, it's perfect.
It's awesome.
We're probably. It's gonna be really funny if we're like slightly out of sync. Anyways,
favorite things.
Favorite things is our segment where we like to update you with something that we are excited about this week, something that we've discovered or rediscovered this week, and in hopes that you can be inspired to go out and find your next favorite thing. So I'll start. My favorite thing, I got two mini ones. Number one, I beat Hades, at least the first kind of run through. So I went through from biome 1 or whatever the equivalent is in Hades, biome 1 through biome 4. I beat the boss. I won't spoil who it is. I saw the ending, but surprise, there's more story to be had. They want you to play through it multiple times, which makes sense. It's a roguelite. So I've still got the true ending to unlock, but I was pretty satisfied with myself for beating the boss because he's tough. So he or she is tough.
They are tough.
So they are tough. So a great game. Yeah, incredible, awesome game. I know it was my favorite thing last week as well, but it is still my favorite thing. It's really fun. But my other favorite thing is there's a show I know I've talked about on the podcast before. It's called Dark. Mm-hmm. It's a German show.
I heard about this.
And it's you can either watch it with subtitles, them talking German and watch subtitles, or like anime, you can watch it dubbed, but it's live action dubbed, which is interesting, weird. That's how I choose to watch it. Anyways, my favorite thing is in the show itself, but I'm on season 3, the last season, and kind of trying to catch up on it. And I was watching it last night, and at the end of the episodes, I've noticed there's kind of a pattern. They always have like a song that plays, and like dramatic things are happening while the song is playing. And that kind of leads up to the last scene before they leave you on a cliffhanger. The song on the episode I watched last night was incredible. I was like moved. And so I looked, this has happened maybe like 3 times in my entire life where I've heard a song on a show and then been like, I need to look it up. One was a show, I forget what it was called. It was like a crime serial killer show, cult. There was like a cult. And it was there was a cover of Bad Moon on the Rise that was amazing.
Sounds like Westworld.
No, it wasn't Westworld, but
yeah, because Westworld had really cool covers like that.
I
want to go look up.
Yeah. There's one like that, but this one was it was a song, and so I looked it up, and it was a band called Hosier, and the song is called Somewhere in the Woods Somewhere. That's what it was, In the Woods Somewhere. So y'all should check it out because so it's just like. It's really, really like melancholy, but also like haunting, like something's going on, something weird and creepy is going on. And I kind of like that music sometimes. Sometimes, not all the times, but I was listening to it on the way here and I was like, this is one of my favorite things this week because it's just such a good song. But it's got like this like dramatic, like the melody sounds like from Phantom of the Opera. There's a song from Phantom of the Opera that immediately reminded me of. And then but then it's got these like, dun-dun-dun-dun, like heavy guitar riffs that are just like, whoa. It's awesome.
Sweet.
So check out In the Woods Somewhere by Hosier, Hozier. That's my other favorite thing. Yeah.
And I did the same thing with Death Stranding. Like just the very, like when the songs would kick in and then moments where you're like peaking a hill and it's like this big landscape moment and there's like a heavy sand bridge thing. It's like, so it just hits you in the feels. And so I looked up Death Stranding soundtrack several times as like background noise to work with at work. It was awesome. Yeah. So I can relate to all that.
Yeah. Good stuff. I like discovering music in places that aren't like I'm looking for music. I'm listening. And we don't talk about music a lot in our favorite things. Don't. So I like to whenever I have like a song that I'm like, I'm digging this song, I like to talk about it.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Should start thinking about that. I got some things to share that have been my favorite thing music wise. Yeah. That I have not. There's this musical out there called Hamilton. Never heard of it?
We have talked about Hamilton, and it has shown up on favorite things multiple times for both of us.
My favorite thing, other than recording in person for the first time in like 16 months and sharing this awesome beer.
Was real quick. I did a thing at you but the audience couldn't see it. Final Fantasy VII Remake. The moment where Andrea Rodea was like, "I'm in love," and then
he does that, doesn't he?
Like,
Yeah.
I really wish that in real life I could, like, make a heart sound at you.
We just watched Jimmy Fallon. He had Vin Diesel on talking about Fast 9.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to spoiler to my favorite thing. But I saw Fast 9. It was awesome. But Vin Diesel in the audience, he was like his first time in person, and so he just constantly gave the heart symbol. Like, he stood up. It was so hilarious. Jimmy Fallon's like, you gotta sit down, because he was so excited about people and like being in person.
Yeah.
And that energy is what I have. I'm just like, I love it so much. I love people. But anyway, so my favorite thing is I got to see Fast 9 with friend of the show, Gordon. The two of us got tickets early in advance. We saw it on release night. I had previously built up to this event by watching all 8 Fast movies over the last 10 weeks or so. So I was knocking them out about once a week.
Sure.
I'd miss a week or here, but I watched all 8 of them, was geared, story in.
Did you watch Hobbs and Shaw too?
I didn't rewatch that because that was the newest one, and I saw it twice.
Ah, I see.
So it was like, that was fresh in my head. It was like Fast 2 and 4 and 5, 6. Those I haven't seen in forever. I haven't seen 8 since theaters. So it'd been a long time since I saw some of those, and I was like, okay, I need to just watch them all at once and do all the research on the story and follow along with what's going on and be here for 9.
Nice.
9 did not disappoint. It was awesome. I highly recommend it. It's not my favorite Fast movie, but it's really, really,
It's a
really
good one.
and I want to see it again.
You changed our Facebook Messenger theme.
I did.
Facebook Messenger allows us to like select themes, and usually they're related to the holidays. So we had like a Valentine's Day theme, and for a little bit we had a little Pride theme going on.
We did. It was great.
And then you changed it to Fast 9. I was like, I'm not going to fight him on this. It's fine. We'll just do Fast 9. It's fine.
And I was listening to there's a Spotify playlist of all Fast and Furious soundtracks. And so I've been listening to that over the last couple of months because it's a huge playlist because like 8 movies full of songs, and they're all random different genres and stuff. So a lot of reggaeton and a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap, which I love. So I was in all that.
Ludacris.
In that world.
Ludacris is in it.
Yeah.
Ludacris is making the Fast. Like, that's his job now, is to make Fast and Furious movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he makes a ton of money.
So much money.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even do make music anymore. He just makes money.
Right.
Doing Fast movies.
Too fast. Too furious.
All right. Is that that's good?
Yeah.
Good. I've never been a huge fan of those movies, but you know that it is the single highest grossing movie franchise.
Oh, really?
In the
More
world.
than Marvel?
Yeah. What?
More than the Marvel Cinematic Universe? So the 20 plus movies in Marvel combined don't make more money than the 9
Correct.
plus Hobbs and Shaw 10 of Fast.
Worldwide, correct.
I guess the audience is broader, right? Marvel turns off superhero non-fans.
Yep.
If you're not a fan
Comic
of superheroes,
books, yep.
right? Like comic books, you're not going to watch it.
Well,
Whereas
you'd think that like Cars would turn off as many people as, but
it's
no,
not-
apparently people
it's so
love
not
Cars.
a car movie anymore.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 were car movies.
Sure.
Maybe the third one was a car movie. That's Tokyo Drift, like because drifting. But after that, it was never a car movie. It was always an action
Fast and
flick.
Furious is the highest grossing movie franchise of all
There's
time.
a reason for it. It's
I
well
guess.
worth it.
I guess.
Yeah. Don't look for like
No. I'm not judging. I'm just
No, I mean like don't look for that like super artistic deep plot.
No,
and, like,
no,
it does pull your heartstring. I almost cried.
Sure. Okay. All right.
There's kids involved.
Wow.
Kids involved. You just yeah.
I'll kill you.
Family.
Are you ready for DLC?
DLC.
DLC stands for
Meow.
downloadable content. It is a segment of our show that is a mini discussion, a sub discussion. It is a conversation you wouldn't normally have about video games. Sometimes it's related to our main topic and inspired by it. Sometimes it's not. This week it is. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to, in honor of America, in honor of the 4th of July, which, for those who may not be Americans and may not know, the 4th of July is celebrated by Americans because it is the day the Declaration of Independence was signed by the Founding Fathers. It was not 1776. It is not the day that America was established as a country. It was the day that Americans, colonists, said, "Screw you, England. We're gonna go do it. We're going home." That was that is the day. The reason why we celebrate on this day.
They say the price of my love.
It's going to be constant, guys. It's going to be constant. It was one thing when it was just him as a Hamilton fan. Now I'm a Hamilton fan, so whatever. Anyway, so our in honor of the Founding Fathers, here's what we're going to do. You are going to come up with a Founding Father that is not Alexander Hamilton.
Okay.
You have to pick anyone but Alexander Hamilton.
Okay.
It's your solid snake. But there's plenty to pick from.
Sure.
So you have to pick a Founding Father, and then I'm going to pick a video game genre. Now, these two We did not plan this ahead of time. It's completely improvised. He doesn't know what I'm going to pick. I don't know who he's going to pick. That's why I said not Alexander Hamilton, so I didn't think about it ahead of time. So we're going to fuse those two. I'm going to come up with a genre. He's going to come up with a founding father, and we're going to describe this game that is whatever genre I pick is. We have to come up with a game that founding father and describe this game. So
knowing that you're going to describe a game puts a bias on my selection.
Okay.
Because there's some boring founding fathers and there's some interesting founding fathers.
But that again. If you end up picking a boring one, it will make it even more interesting to fuse it with whatever genre I pick.
I'm gonna go. This is really tough.
Sure.
And
all
maybe after we're done, you can circle back around and ask what my other choices were and why. Because I feel like those are valid, and I don't want to feel like I'm just.
There's
picking...
the founding father I'm secretly hoping you're picking because it could apply to so many.
Yeah. But there's like big ones that are obvious, and it's like, oh, that's a shoe-in. Of course, Termite would just pick that to cash in.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't want it to be that.
Yeah,
I'm actually picking this person because there's a lot of options. It's probably the same person.
All right.
But it's not because of my love for the Hamilton show.
Sure.
But Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. That was my second one that I was hoping you were pick. I was kind of secretly hoping you were pick Ben Franklin.
That's the other one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Those are the two that are
Ben
super
Franklin,
interesting.
He wasn't in Hamilton, so he's kind of falling out of the public consciousness.
Yep.
But Ben Franklin,
super.
He never served. He never served in office anywhere, but he was just like super influential. So Ben Franklin, big respect.
Yeah, me too.
Crazy guy.
Yeah, that's why he would have been very interesting. So
guy.
it was a toss up between
but you chose
Franklin and Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson's coming home. My genre that I picked independent of the choice. Thomas Jefferson in an arcade beat 'em up.
Oh, perfect. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson spent the entire basically missed the late 80s.
Yeah.
Where was he? He was in Paris. And he did so, racking up insane amounts of debt and living a flamboyant lifestyle. So, of course, the beat 'em up is going to be like a Scott Pilgrim versus the world, like 8-bit kind of side-scrolling beat 'em up where he just picks random
in
like expensive things and beats people over the head with it.
In 18th century France.
Right, in 18th century France. So it's like, here's King Louis' cane. Here's King Henry's crown. And he's just like smashing them around.
He's totally got a cane as his primary, he's like smacking people around with a cane.
And not because he needs it to walk. It's because it's super expensive and it belongs in the royal heritage.
And it's super, he's classy. He's super classy.
Right. So he's
smacking people around with a cane.
Yep. And he's got all these different feet and like all
Pre-French Revolution, because French Revolution didn't happen until after the American Revolution.
Let me ask King Louis' head.
Back.
Oh, let me guess, he's super dead.
So it's not even like a French Revolution thing. You're not even going around like proletariat versus bourgeoisie or anything like that. No, it's clearly just Thomas Jefferson
wrecking
house, with his debts. What's the title of this game?
Something to do with debt.
I was kind of thinking like something Monticello.
I want to be in Monticello.
Because Monticello is his home, right?
It
so
is,
like Monticello in Virginia. It's great. We're talking about a Virginian. We're Virginians.
We are.
We're Virginia natives. We have both probably been to Monticello. I don't know if you've been to Monticello.
I have. Yeah, I have been. Have you?
Yeah. I have. Yeah, class trip.
Yeah.
I remember the biggest thing I walked away with that entire it's fascinating that even to this day, the one little historical fact this is when I learned this fact. I learned Thomas Jefferson fathered children of his slaves.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a mind-blowing fact when you consider the context of him being, a slave owner. And that was kind of the first time I was ever approached with this idea of like, oh yeah, there are multiple ways that slave owners mistreated their slaves, more than just very, very morally complicated care individual.
Just think that great-grandchildren of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're around. Somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Are they named?
People chase their name back to Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, people chase their lineage. It's crazy. People of many races chase their lineage back to Thomas Jefferson. So, Thomas Jefferson, something Monticello.
Something to do with debt?
I'm a Monticello.
And Monticello.
I don't know, whatever. It's hard. Coming up with titles are hard. We had a whole episode about titles.
Yeah.
How about just Jefferson 1 and then Jefferson 2?
Oh, so it's just self-titled?
Monteurcello. He's back in the second one. In the sequel, he's back in America.
Debt Strike Back.
And now racking
Thomas
up
Jefferson,
all of his...
Debt Strike Back. There you go.
Jefferson 2, Debt Strike Back.
Debts Strike Back.
Debt Strike Back.
And it's all the people he owes money to coming after him, and that's the beat-em-up levels. Each person is a different boss.
But he's like fighting his way through Virginia. He has to fight George Washington. He has to fight Alexander Hamilton totally because the Hamilton...
Final boss.
In fact, Hamilton's the final boss of Jefferson too.
Love it.
Yeah, I love it. Boom. That's it. That's our game. People of the internet, indie developers out there, please make Jefferson 1 and Jefferson 2.
Deep discussions of slavery and colonization and the problematic therein.
But through like a hilarious side-scrolling beat 'em up.
That'd be
over the top side-scrolling.
How about that? Like awareness of America's very problematic history,
sordid past,
and colonization and how they treated the natives and how slavery happened and all that, like front and center, just boom out there, like
with Thomas Jefferson.
With Thomas Jefferson, like
sprite 2D sprite side-scrolling beat 'em up. I'm into it. I am so into it. Man, Evernote just logged me out. What the heck?
Evernote is literally the worst.
The worst.
Why don't we use this platform?
All right, so that segues us nicely into our conversation about America. It is our episode for the night. So we're going to be talking about America. It's our main topic. And mostly we are going to be talking about a bunch of different things. So let's start. And just our first question is, what does America mean to you personally? Like, what is this idea of America? What does your country mean to you?
Deep.
Yeah, it's kind of our first question. Let's talk about our own personal thoughts and feelings towards our own country, because everybody, and no matter what country you live in, you're maybe, again, there are probably varying levels of appreciation of being in that country. Maybe you want to more or less be in a different country, but one way or another, you have an opinion on your own country. That's shaped by your experiences, shaped by your privilege, and shaped by, those two things probably. Or maybe awareness, education and awareness, all that stuff. But nevertheless, everyone, your country means something to you. And since we're Americans and we just celebrated probably the most important holiday of our country, it's time for reflection. Let's go ahead and start there, and then we can talk about video games. But
there was a time in my life being raised by the redneck biker crowd where I would have thought America's the greatest country in the world. We do no wrong. American exceptionalism to the nth degree.
Sure.
And I'd have been there front and center like, yeah, America. We're the best. And I would have held my hand strong again, up my right heart, right? You cover your heart during everything. You look at an American flag, you salute it, you do all of those things. You honor the fact that on our money it says "In God We Trust," and the 10 Commandments are in our courtrooms, and we have silent prayers in school, and America. All of that has completely been destroyed,
flipped on its head,
and now completely reconstructed. Where now I'm in a place where I want more responsibility and recognition for what we talked about earlier with colonization, and we have moved and wrecked millions of people's lives, starting with the natives when people came across the country, and then all of the exceptionalist history where all that stuff was coated with sugar in our elementary schools, and how wonderful it was that Christopher Columbus came over and discovered our magical new land. And that stuff is problematic now, and Christopher Columbus is not that great. He treated people horribly. And then slavery, and how that was all exploited, and the entire South was built on the backs of slaves, and even in the North. And it took so long. People fought a whole civil war over the fact that they could not give up their livelihood that were exploiting slaves. So now I have all of this weird complications with
sure. There's we always grew up. I was always sort of, I should say, taught that the rest of the world hates America because they're jealous of America.
No.
And the reason is, no, the rest of the world, both highly conservative states and highly liberal states, hate America for different reasons, but they hate America for good reasons, because there's this idea of economic imperialism, and not even just that. There are territories out there that America has colonized and added to our empire that they don't, Puerto Rico, for example, they don't have the rights of Americans, but they're an American territory that we still govern and make choices for them, but they don't have representation. That's the entire reason we fought the war in the Revolutionary War that we just celebrated, was because we said, no, you can't tax us without representing us. But we do that to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Why not make them a state? Well, because they're brown, I guess.
Right? Yeah,
That's it. That's
but really, like that's
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah.
And as white single, I'm not single. I meant white straight Christian
Anglo
whatever.
wasp.
Like yeah,
White
we're wasps.
Anglo-Saxon
Yeah.
Protestants.
Exactly.
Add
We're
cisgendered straight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's the lens that I was given. So I
Yeah.
never had to question any of the stuff that was fed to me in schools. And so here we are, where I'm like, I definitely side with Kaepernick and his kneel when he
Sure.
was doing against the national anthem to raise awareness for the problematic problems we have in America today. And of course, 2020 happened, George Floyd's murder. We spoke out about it, and it just
Man.
revealing and pulling back the veil. Trump's presidency, it just really revealed the ingrained racist,
Systematic racism. Yep.
systematic racism, and
Systematic problems in general. It
Yes,
extends. Racism
Sexism.
is truly a big problem, but there's problems that are
It's-
baked into our society
white
even beyond
supremacy,
that.
the patriarchy.
But all that said, and we can both have an entire conversation about.
We could start a whole new podcast
We
about
could
all that.
seriously dig into
There are
that
some.
for episodes and episodes and episodes.
Yep.
But the point of this question and the point of this, the point of the holiday we just celebrated is like it's very healthy and very important to sit there and criticize
Mhm.
and be critically thinking and engage critically with your country. At the same time, it's also important, I think, to sort of reflect and be like, okay, but like, what do you appreciate about this country?
Yeah.
What is it that this country is? What is valuable? What is still something that's worth? Why is this country worth fighting for? Why not just move to Canada or move to the
Almost did.
Netherlands?
Well, yeah, we have a lot. We're the wealthiest country in the world. We're the most successful economic experiment to ever happen.
Sure.
With the marriage of a capitalist system and a democratic republic
Yep.
style of government
Mhm.
that's unlike anything ever in the history of the world.
We started it too. There wasn't anything like
Right.
that
Yep.
when we like we are the experiment.
Yeah.
And other countries may have like done it better over the course of the last 400 years, but we started it. We came up with the idea. Our thinkers are the ones who came up
Mhm.
with the form of government in the first
And
place.
there are a million problems with capitalism. I'll be
Sure.
the first person to say that it does allow the 1% to happen. It's a problematic distribution of wealth where the very few have the most. And
But at the same time, we also have air conditioning.
yeah, and like that's standard in our house, right?
Yeah.
It's like super hot. Like
Yeah.
every house has houses are affordable, cars are affordable. It's like the poorest person in America is wealthy in third world countries,
Technology has been able to advance drastically. I mean, like our country was founded with people who were riding around in horses, and now we have planes.
Yeah.
Now you can hop on a plane and go to Dubai if you want to, and like with minimal cost and
the
relative
single
ease.
most important technology to ever hit our generation was the smartphone.
Yeah. Mhm.
Where did it come from? Apple,
Yeah. Mhm.
which was an American
company. Yep. Exactly.
And it's that whole capitalist mentality where it's like competition drives innovation
Yep.
because you want to outweigh your competitors to
Make
compete
more money
in a
than
fair
them.
market
Yep. Mhm.
space. And so like our government might come down on monopolies and like enforce the whatever kind of mandates to stop monopolies from happening, but like in that space where you're competing with others, you are innovating in ways that are unique to the
Mhm.
world. And we have Tesla and we have electronic cars, and like that's all coming out of Elon Musk, and like that's American. Granted, we're more global and more connected, so it's there's an argument to say that like the American innovations are driven by non-American people because
Sure.
of the cross-pollination and traveling and global society that we are. But that aside, it's like some of the biggest technological innovations of our time came out of America.
Yeah. Mhm.
And the system allowed for that to happen.
Yep.
The same system I critique is also the same system that allows for those things to
Sure.
happen.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not just a black and white. There's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, like again, a lot of those things, and sure, does it provide advantages to people disproportionately? 100%.
Mhm.
But it still does. There is still an argument to be made that it does provide advantages to most people worldwide. I mean, America has been driving innovation for 400 years,
Mhm.
or however long. 500 years? Is it coming up on 500? I have no idea. I don't know how long our country's been around. Math
Not
eludes me.
300 years yet?
Has that been not
1776, 1876, 1976, 2076.
Oh, shoot.
2076 is the tricentennial.
Whoa! Crazy.
If we're alive in 2076, we'll see the tricentennial, which is
Wow.
actually kind of a revelation because I didn't realize 1976 was the bicentennial.
Yeah.
200 years,
Wow.
that'd be wild, right? But the 1976 doesn't feel super long ago.
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
It's
but that's my point. Is
50
like,
years ago.
like the founding fathers could not have imagined that the country they started would look like this in
Right.
200 years. Because 200 years before, then it didn't look that different from what it is
Right,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, anyways, my answer to this question, I'll keep it brief, but my answer to this question really, there's a couple of things. On the one hand, like, are we the most free country in the world? No, there's other countries that do this idea of freedom better than we do, but we're still free, right? Like, I can still sit here and on a podcast criticize our government and not expect that people will knock on my door and take me to jail, right? Like, I do still appreciate this idea of, like, I have a voice and I can make a difference. And can I make a huge difference? No, but if enough of people like me hear my idea, if I can have my voice out there, I could spread my ideas far enough that people could appreciate it. And together we can make a difference. Like, I think that's still a very valuable thing that does still exist in our country, despite attacks to the contrary. The other thing that I appreciate about our country, quite frankly, I appreciate American culture. I grew up in American culture. I love American culture. American culture produced NASCAR. American culture produced WWE,
NASCAR.
And they're ridiculous, over the top, completely ridiculous things. And yet, at the same time, even though I might not partake of them, I still am like, yeah, that's American right there. That's America. And this idea of, like, American culture, to me, is capsulated in one idea. And it's the idea of, quote, the loud American. And it's the, have you heard of this concept? Have you heard of this idea?
No.
Japanese business people will, like, Japanese businesses like to hire someone they call the loud American. And it is an American person, or someone who is influenced, maybe someone who is Japanese but raised in America.
Uh-huh.
And it's this idea that, like, in Japanese culture, it is frowned upon for subordinates to criticize their superiors.
Uh-huh.
If a manager, and more importantly, it's frowned upon for subordinates to say that an idea that a manager has is bad. So managers will frequently, like, come up with bad ideas. Their subordinates will all recognize it's a bad idea, but because it's so culturally frowned upon for them to say anything, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. That's great. The loud American is hired specifically because they're going to be like, no, that's stupid. Don't do it. And because it's okay for them, because, whereas a Japanese person might be like, oh, that's you just made a cultural faux pas. The manager would be like, oh, he's American, it's fine.
They can excuse it away.
It's excusable because it's this idea that, like, but again, like, I love that idea because I'm like, number one, I would love to be hired. If any Japanese businesses out there are hiring a loud American, I would be a great loud American.
Nintendo,
I'm in.
let's go.
I will 100% be like, nope, dumb, do it different, do it better. Like, if I got paid to just do that, my entire job was to be like, nope, wrong, do it better. Like, I love that. But I like this idea that, like, yeah, Americans are known as people who are willing to question and willing to not care about, like, willing to kind of cut through the sort of cultural red tape. And we have our own rituals and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, there's this idea that we're like this global kind of idea that, like, Americans are the kind of people who, cut through the bull crap. Like, yeah, I like that kind of aspect that we've been able to cultivate that as a society because there was so much bull crap for so many thousands of years. Propriety, and I just listened to a podcast on royalty, and the entire concept is offensive to me, that people will just, because you have more land than me, and have had more land than me for thousands of years, gives you the right. No, screw that. I'm an American. I have rights.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that concept is really valuable to me.
In summary, though, right now where I stand with America is I don't approve more than I do approve.
Sure.
And I think that 2020, or the last 5 years, really have, like, the Trump presidency has just really pulled back all those veils that I had growing up. And so where I stand now is a lack of an appreciation for it, mixed with the nuance, right? It is I get my family, I have an income, I have a stable house, I have air conditioning, I have technology, I have access to technology. Like, I understand that those are, like, benefits of America, but I don't approve the way the country is.
Sure,
There's too much
and that's
oppression,
important.
and there's too much inequality, and there's too many people that are damaged more than I feel like are benefited, like myself.
Right.
And so that's kind of, like, in a 30,000 foot level summary of my thoughts on America now versus, like, 6 years ago.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, it's important to recognize when you're going and I'm going through a very similar disillusionment as well. But at the same time,
that's
like,
a good word.
Yeah, and I'm going through the similar thing right now. But at the same time, like, I think it's healthy to sit there and be like, but, like, also there's some great things about this country. Not exclusionary, not like saying that we're the only country that does these things.
Definitely not.
But at the same time, like, I mean, again, I also, like, it's also healthy to separate, like, the country and the way it's run from the culture.
Yep.
And America produces great culture. And we have dominated the cultural landscape for a couple, at least 100 years, probably. More, maybe a little bit less. But we're like, 50 to 100 years, we've dominated the cultural landscape. And we've produced stuff that people all around the world want and like.
That's true.
And that's great. So, anyways, let's talk about video games now.
Hey,
let's
we are
specifically,
a video game podcast.
we're a video game podcast. Let's talk about American developers and publishers. Do you have favorites? What are your who are your favorite what are great Americans that are making great video games right now?
Ooh, this is like, I didn't do any research for this, so I have to think off the top.
Top of your head? My immediate thought is like Santa Monica Studio.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Talk about Americans who know video games.
my first two, I had two thoughts. One of them was Valve.
Oh, yeah.
Which they're not in the limelight right now because they're not making any games. But they did make Half-Life and Half-Life 2 and Portal.
Hugely
and
influential.
Ridiculous. And Steam. Like 90% of PC gamers have Steam, right? That's Valve. So major influence. Huge company. The other one I'm thinking of is Bethesda. Because of the Elder Scrolls and Skyrim and Fallout and how big and huge and popular and how game-changing they were for the entire gaming industry. I mean, how many people chased after that big open-world RPG
because of Bethesda?
Because of them. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3 would not exist without Bethesda because those companies would not have been driven to make games like Bethesda when they were pioneering those kinds of open-world RPG experiences.
Yeah, I think of also like Blizzard.
Yep, Blizzard was next
I was gonna say Blizzard, at least old Blizzard, like the way that they made they were known for and it's like bittersweet for me to talk about Blizzard because it's always has been for the last like 2 or 3 years. It's been bittersweet for me to talk about Blizzard because like I still remember. I mean, Blizzard was so hugely influential to gamers like me. All throughout the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it wasn't until the early 2010s that they started the real decline happened when they were bought by Activision. But Blizzard was just like an American company that just knew games, made games, and also would not compromise on quality.
Right, it'll be done when it's done.
Yep,
they always said that.
So sad to see them begin to compromise on quality, and also to recognize that like the American guys and girls that made the Blizzard games that we love are no longer with Blizzard. they're a different company now entirely. But nevertheless, just so influential.
The very first notable game company in America was Atari.
Oh, yeah.
Which is single-handedly to blame for the destruction of the video game industry in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
In which Nintendo,
America,
right? You talk about loud American. What is it? Nolan? No, Bush. I forget his name. The name escapes me. Who's the founder of Atari? What is the guy's name? Oh my gosh! You just like Atari Wiki. It's got to be. He was so proud. He was this party. Nolan Bushnell. Yes, I was right. Okay, Nolan Bushnell. He was like accused of lots of predatory practices and exploitation of the workforce, but also he had this super laid back West Coast like non-office environment way of developing games. So he was super new and super like hip, and he was so attractive to work with, and like he treated women like terrible, but he had like these hot tub parties and had these bro-like environments, but also produced a platform that so many people made games on that it oversaturated the market with crap games. Trash. Trash and crap.
Trap. Crash.
I can't talk. But it's hilarious that like that was an American company that crashed the gaming industry.
Sure.
That was then resurrected by Nintendo.
Hugely influential though, one way or another. Yeah.
But and then Sega, of course, being Japan and having.
Oh my gosh, the design of the Atari too is so America with the wood paneling, like
paneling,
80s America wood paneling. Wow.
70s.
Yeah.
70s, yeah. So, what's the next question? What else we got?
Great. Yeah, I think that wraps up publishers and well, mostly developers. We like to talk. We tend to be more developer friendly than we do publishers. Right. There's not a lot of American publishers right now that I can speak
Electronic Arts, Activision,
and I don't like either of them.
Right?
So yeah. All right. So let's talk about games then. What are some games that heavily feature American culture or this idea of Americana? And what do those games say about the United States of America?
There's Duke Nukem.
Oh my gosh, good pull. Oh, that's the most American game out there.
It's a white dude that loves naked women and like beer
and guns
and cussing people out with guns.
Yep.
Like he is that
right
your there.
So I think there are a couple of games.
Well, there's another one that we're both going to talk about a lot.
What's that?
BioShock Infinite.
Oh, BioShock Infinite. That was not the one I was going to talk about.
What?
I wanted to talk about a couple. There were two games I want to talk about, mostly because, like, ironically, I feel like I'm reflective today, and I'm reflecting on the fact that we just celebrated a very historical holiday.
Yeah.
So the two games that came to mind were Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yes.
That was one of the first games that I've played that really at least tried. Obviously, like, geographically, you can't like capture America on the map of a video game.
Right. It's too big.
Too big, right? Of course, like
Manifest Destiny.
Yeah, it takes
I'm eye-rolling.
It takes hundreds of days to walk from Virginia to California.
Yep.
Or I guess I probably could have picked like Southern California to Maine, if you really wanted to, walk across America. But the fact that Red Dead Redemption sort of tried to at least capture the heart of like American landscape in one single map, the different kind of biomes. There's the sort of Rocky Mountain area, there's the Louisiana area. Like, it really felt like I was in a historical America in Red Dead Redemption 2. And it was remarkable, and just a very, again, cowboys is the idea of like cowboys is such a American idea that like Red Dead Redemption 2 just really is like in my mind. And I think Red Dead Redemption 1 takes place in Mexico, right?
Some of it does.
Some of it does, not all of it. Okay, well, yeah. So this was Red Dead Redemption 2 I picked specifically because it was like America.
Yeah, and what's great about that game is it really highlights the influence of businesses growing from the East and pushing the free-range catalysts that were starting in like the Midwest, like pushing them farther west and out of their lands. It's almost like an internal colonization was happening, and it was like these businessmen coming in from the East are starting up all this industry, and like the Industrial Revolution was something, we were on the cusp of that. So it's like railroads were being laid, and like steel work and coal mining, and all these things were like changing the entire. And Red Dead Redemption 2 deals with the old lifestyle of
how America, like what America's roots and foundation were of this sort of like free country versus this like concept of the overarching like hand of capitalism.
Yep. Yeah.
And it really deals with this theme and this struggle that we're still feeling today.
Yeah.
In a context of a time when that was just starting, and it wasn't quite, they didn't have smartphones.
Right.
Arthur Morgan isn't like connected to his cell phone or whatever.
There weren't even phones.
But the same themes and the same conflicts still existed, and it like deals directly with that. It's such a great game to celebrate.
Yeah.
America in many ways.
And another that actually reminds me of an entire franchise that really is satire on America, and that's Grand Theft Auto.
Oh yeah.
Every entry,
great American game.
Every entry in Grand Theft Auto is a massive satire on American culture, and they highlight different aspects. So Grand Theft Auto 3 was kind of a modern.
There we go. Those are answer. Developer, American developers.
It is, yeah, and San Andreas dealt with the L.A. and like the urbanization, all of that stuff that's going on in those cultures, and then Vice City was in the 80s and what was going on in Florida. So you had New York, Florida, LA, and then you continue on with like Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 that have some of the overlapping cities. But like every single time I remember distinctly Grand Theft Auto 4 really making fun of Starbucks and like the whole hipster movement. And then that continued on in a new evolution with the Facebook movement and like making fun of social media in Grand Theft Auto 5. And it's not just making fun of, but like really deep satire that makes you think like, wow.
Oh, yeah. What are we doing wrong? Or what are we doing right?
Yeah. People's lives are affected here. Sure. It's kind of cool because it's like you think of it as like a stupid, you can shoot people and you can pick up prostitutes and like steal cars.
Right, that's what's always featured there.
Yeah,
but the reality is like
drunk, go to strip clubs and like all this crazy stuff. But actually, it's a very deep story that is
which is perfect because
yeah.
that is like what people think of. Like you can do all those things in America. Right? Like you can do all those things in America. And that is the reality of America. And many people live that lifestyle. Maybe not to go around and shoot people, but
that can be argued.
Yeah, but so then to be able to then say like, okay, here's the context of the world that you're in right now in this game.
Yep.
And then to tell an actual like compelling story within that is like it's both genius and it's also like, yep, this is an accurate reflection on like modern American life in many ways. Again, aside from the throwing Molotov cocktails in the street.
Right.
You know what I mean? Consequence-free throwing Molotov cocktails in the street. The other game that comes to mind, and this is sort of an interesting pull, because it's not an American game, it's not made by an American, but it is a game that in many ways is a love letter to America from a foreign entity, and that is Death Stranding. You had mentioned it before.
Yep.
It is really, in my mind, I think of Death Stranding in a lot of ways as Hideo Kojima's love letter to America.
Yeah.
Because the game, I mean, they say America a lot.
Yes, they do.
But this idea that, like, again, and I love how I mean, we can talk for a whole podcast about how prescient Death Stranding was in predicting the pandemic in a lot of ways.
So I mean that was already dealing with the disconnect that was going on because of social media, which is ironic because it's a thing that's supposed to connect us. It's a platform,
and the game has a social media like mechanic within it.
Likes are a thing, and so it's clearly targeting the disconnect that we're all involved in our phones and self-absorbed, and we're disconnecting from others in real life. But then the pandemic strikes, where we're actually isolated, and that just I didn't even want to replay that game because I just finished it before the pandemic hit, for one, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere near. I'll be a ball of emotion.
Oh my gosh,
and
so
nonstop.
Good. Yeah, that game happened so right before the pandemic, but it's interesting because it really is. It's when I say it's a love letter, it's like Hideo Kojima did such a good job of both capturing the like, oh, this is really truly a problem in our country, while also being like, but you guys are better than that, right? Like, because the through line of the story is about connecting people and how like we can all come together and be a united country, a united state again. And really that like that idea of like he could hit on that theme while also still being an accurate criticism of our current state was like it's awesome. It's cool to see, especially considering he is a Japanese man analyzing American culture.
Yeah, America is unique in that you could drive down one street and be it food is the first indication of culture, right? That's like that's the easiest barrier of entry to understand a culture.
Yeah,
You can drive down one street in America and you can get Italian, Mexican, Louisiana fried chicken, and like American heartland grits and shrimp, and then like I don't even know, Asian, Chinese, Thai, Japanese food all in one street in America. And some of those restaurants might be fast food chains, but that fast food chain came up through capitalism, and it started with someone from not America starting a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You're right.
That's American, but like.
Taco Bell.
Right, Taco Bell is like a Mexican food, so that's like tacos.
Kind of. It's complicated because like it's very Americanized.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
no, but you're right.
The fact that there is an Americanized, streamlined chain is a result of capitalism that started with one restaurant that opened with immigrants, right? And so like Melting Pot is like the thing that was always ingrained in my head as a child, which may or may not be real, but
the idea of the melting pot, we were always taught it was like, oh, they all come together,
right? And that's what
the reality is like doing. The reality of the idea of the melting pot as it was conceptualized.
White people are stirring everyone together.
It basically is that we are melting you down into the idea was not melting together; it was more melting down. We're melting you down into our. Assimilating you into our culture, which is a little bit, and that was what it was intent. Like it was just it became watered down the American education system to become this idea of like, oh, it's about inclusivity, when in reality it was about assimilation from the get go.
Right, and there's all the problematic nuance in this statement.
Right,
but what Hideo Kojima I think nailed with Death Stranding was that we are a people of multiple, like there's nowhere else in the world. If you go to Japan, you're not going to find the percentage of the population that is Korean, maybe some Mexican, African American, African, like the mixture of what we have, the diversity in America is so unique to it. It's like you can go to San Diego and see an entirely different culture and Latin American influence than if you went to Maine, where you would see a lot of like very white, like European influence and maybe a lot of Catholics and Jews up in the New England area. And so like you have that in the same country. It's one country,
right?
But we're so far spread. We're so huge. There's so many different types of people that live in one country.
And something attracted those people to
which is
this place.
Which is the system of like the chance to get somewhere.
Right.
And like the wealth is not controlled by the government so much so that you have no chance. You actually do have a chance. You can come here from another country and start something for your family and like provide. It is appealing. And you think about, in our perspective, some of us would like to criticize America as being like kind of low rung and not as awesome as people make it out to be. But that's still a better option than most of the world.
Yeah, much of the world.
There's so much so that they're willing to risk life and limb and their own children to get here.
Yeah,
and that's like just brushing up very quickly against like
and are willing to put up with the oppressions here, to avoid the oppressions at home.
And so that scale, like that means something.
Definitely
I think
says
Hideo
something.
Kojima was nailing that in Death Stranding. So bringing it all back to video games, like that's kind of the core undercurrent to Death Stranding.
Yeah.
We're all together. We're all here for
Right.
this purpose, to do this thing. It's wild.
Right, and
Yeah.
to face whatever we have to face. And in
Yeah.
Death Stranding, it's ghost
BTs.
things from a parallel universe.
That are
Who
dead, that
knows?
are connected by umbilical cords to the sky. And
Whales. Something about whales. There's ghost
made of-
whales.
made
That's
of
what it
oil
was.
and-
In reality, we have a whole ton of different problems. I almost wish we had the ghost whales to face. Maybe we'd come together a little bit better because of the ghost whales.
No,
My last game I
Last
wanted to
of Us
talk
proved
about.
that was not correct. Anyway, go ahead.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you, video games.
Last game I want to talk about. That
Naughty
sort of
Dog.
is like
That's another developer.
an interest. Oh, so many. I wanted
Last-
because it was because the way it handles the idea of America. I want to talk a little bit about Assassin's Creed 3
Ooh.
because to me that is. I mean, to me. That is the only game that I'm familiar with that really tackles the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And they made a very conscious choice to make the main character a American native, an American Native American. Yeah, that's the word.
Indigenous person.
Yeah, yep. And they maybe didn't do it perfectly. In fact, Assassin's Creed 3 is regularly considered to be one of the worst Assassin's Creed games. But at the same time, I find it fascinating because, again, it's like they had characters like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson in the game.
Yeah.
And you interacted with them as NPCs. There was a whole DLC about the, quote, tyranny of King George, where it took the sort of alternate, or the tyranny of King Washington, as I think it was what it was called. And they took this sort of alternate history, like, what-if approach, where they explored the idea of, like, what if George Washington decided he didn't want to step down and instead wanted to create a dynastic kingdom, and like how would that have affected America? Like no other game does that. No other game did that, and I would love to see, like, the American Revolution. You would think is there's so many games made around World War II. You'd think that there would be as many about the American Revolution, but there's not. So a game tackling that, and a game franchise that's uniquely positioned to be able to do that. It's kind of an interesting time period. Like, I would love Sucker Punch to make not Ghost of Tsushima, but like a game. It wouldn't be Ghost of Tsushima, but it would be that same engine. What if they took that same engine and made a American Revolution
That'd be
game?
awesome.
Like, that would be awesome. It would be so cool. More games should mine that time period for. And so I applaud Assassin's Creed 3 for doing that. It was the only Assassin's Creed game that caught my eye for that exact reason. So,
very interesting. I know Far Cry 5 also deals with, like, a lot of America,
Heartland America, yeah.
American people, and like the problematic kind of Trumpism that was rampant.
oh man, yeah, it's a
but
game of its time too.
I'm super ignorant, and I don't want to misspeak about Far Cry 5, but apparently a lot of people took a lot out of it, saying it didn't go far enough in critiquing this type of stuff, or it enabled that kind of behavior or something, but it's not really what the game was about. I don't know. Like I said, I'm speaking from a place of ignorance, having not played it. I just know if you're looking for games that kind of explore Americana, that's on your list, you should check that out.
That and BioShock Infinite, of course,
yeah.
because we've talked about that, but like,
Yeah.
but you know, gosh, we talked to like BioShock Infinite when you have a robot George Washington shooting you with a machine gun. Talk about America.
Yep.
Right there, amazing game, good
Yeah.
fun. Oh man, love BioShock Infinite.
Me too.
All right, well, if we can answer this in like 2 minutes. But my last question I want to hit here is, how can the gaming industry and culture, how do you think video gamers could improve the United States of America? What are things that we can do? Actions.
The video game industry culture?
Gaming industry or the gaming culture. What can we do as gamers, or what
Gotcha.
could the industry do to make a difference in America?
That's two very different things. So I'm
Sure.
going to start with the industry.
Yeah.
The video game industry is objectively left-leaning and progressive.
Yeah.
So the goal that I can see that's positive in this, not critiquing them yet, I mean, that's a different conversation. What they're doing to improve America is raising awareness. That's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Representation
Yep.
of oppressed, constantly minority or out of the limelight, what do you call, like, shoved to the side?
Sure, just oppress groups.
Oppressed in like groups, right? So
Yeah.
we're seeing now in the gaming, in video games, period, we're seeing lots of brown people and lots of females.
And more accessibility features.
And that's the
Yep.
next thing, right? So the video game industry is doing awareness through all of their social medias, their podcasts, their news industry outlets, everything else. Like, here's these things that are happening. And IGN is reporting on Palestine's problems. Like,
Right.
that's something they're not even like they're a video game website. What do they do, right? But I think that's a good thing. They're raising awareness. That's step one. Step two is the developers are increasing representation. So stories written by and for those types of people that are not the minority or the people in power, the people that hold the strings. So we're seeing a lot of LGBTQ stories, a lot of brown people, a lot of females, and a lot of female empowerment, and that's awesome. So keep that up. Keep going in that direction. And then what did you mention?
Culture or gamers. What can gamers do?
You said developers. There's one other thing you just mentioned, and I was getting there.
Accessibility?
Yes, thank you. All right, so accessibility, that's the next wave of inclusivity that needs to happen to allow anyone who has any type of disability, whether it's mental or physical, whatever, like to allow them to fully experience games the same way that someone who doesn't. Like, it's finally giving a microphone to the less heard
voice for the voiceless. Yeah,
and I love it. And so, like, the industry, the people, the professionals are doing that. If you want to talk about the culture, that's a little bit more.
It's so much harder because you have a broad range of people from various backgrounds, beliefs, and socioeconomic levels. But I mean, the biggest thing I think that, and I'll answer this part of the question is, culturally speaking, we need to treat one another better.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, like, gamers, American gaming culture has a lot of negative connotations
there's
to it.
Anti-Semitism.
Sure.
Like sexism. There's racism.
Yeah.
There's bigotry.
Yeah.
It's all like any
toxicity. I mean, that's weird.
Yeah.
Again, toxicity is sort of the overarching idea within gaming culture. We talk about this all the time.
Yep.
And it really truly is, like, on a micro level, you need to begin to see the people that you interact with online as people, the people that you interact with on games as people.
Yep.
And that, again, even if you're a single player, like, even if you're a person who just plays single player games, like, don't trash people who like different games than you, or trash people who want different things out of the same games as you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it's as simple as being like considering that other people have different experiences than you and saying like, oh yeah, those who cares if people are like criticizing Quiet from Metal Gear Solid 5's, like though they have valid criticisms for that, you know what I mean? Like, and even if you're like, this was the best game of all time, like, when someone says like, actually the way that character was portrayed made me feel uncomfortable, like, that's a valid take, and it doesn't mean that they you don't need to like trash them and say like, you're a bad person for like hating this part of this game that I love. Like, nuance. We all have nuanced experiences and nuanced perspectives, and take a step back from your immediate emotional reaction and learn how to engage with things and be like, okay, like, that is a different idea. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to accept and buy ideas that you don't believe in, but it does mean you should at least listen and try to identify. Like, the most important thing you can do is when someone has an idea that's different from what you think, listen to what they're complaining about, because they at least have a valid complaint.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to abandon capitalism and become a socialist country. Like, but we should at least acknowledge that there are problems with capitalism, and
a lot.
How can we address them? You know, that's one microcosm. You know what I mean? Like, you know, LGBTQ, racism, like, you don't necessarily, I'm not sitting here saying that you have to necessarily buy into, you probably have your own valuable personal beliefs. You know, I'm not saying you should change those. What I'm saying is, maybe consider that, like, yeah, transgender people do face more violence than, so even if you don't necessarily believe in the overarching ideas of gender that the left pushes, maybe consider the fact that, hey, we should all agree that we should stop violence against transgender people, period.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That's one example of a microcosm of, like, listen to people, because people have different experiences and face different challenges and problems than you do.
Yep.
And the first step is acknowledging that. Mm-hmm. So
the gaming culture has a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do, guys. Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you are inspired to at least consider, what are ways in which I'm not listening to people.
Yeah. And it can be as shallow as the PC Master Race movement, which I think is the stupidest thing in the world and super toxic and divisive and dumb. But that's just like, that's shallow. Sure.
The other flip side of that same coin is console, like accept that people play on different platforms than you and have reasons for playing on different platforms than you. Yeah. Accept that some people like mobile games. Some people love mobile games. Some people don't.
Yeah, that's fine.
There are problems with mobile games. There are problems with console games. We should accept that across all different things. So yeah, a lot of work to do. That's a whole podcast in and of itself.
And the more deeper example would be like, if a female joins your Overwatch group, don't just assume she's bad at the game because she's a girl.
In fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Evaluate her on the fact that she's sniping you from halfway across the map and you died.
Yeah.
There's like 0, 100%. You know, in MMOs, people will be like, well, it's because they gave her good gear.
Yeah.
No, in Overwatch, she's just better than you.
Stop with the death threats. Stop with swatting. Let's just be better people. Be better to everyone else.
So much. That's a huge topic.
It is.
All right, y'all. Well, we are over time, and so that is probably a good place to stop. We want to hear what your thoughts are. We would love to hear from people outside of America. If anyone listens to the show and is not an American, or has friends or acquaintances or family that aren't Americans, then we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on like America as it relates to video games. America in general, we'll take that, but we would love to just hear your thoughts. But we also want to hear, if you are an American, what are your thoughts on sort of American video game developers or American video game culture? We want to hear all those thoughts and more. So Termite, where can the good people of the internet share their thoughts about America if they have them?
You can give your comments, thoughts, feedback, ideas, and concerns at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets. Those are the easiest ways to be in touch with us. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a subreddit. There's a Discord server, and the link to that server is in the show notes of every episode that goes live. So find us there. Interact with our audience and our community. We are live on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash every single Monday night at 8 p.m. for a news show called 80bit Newscast, and every single Wednesday night at also 8 p.m. where we play a game. We just say our gameplay live stream. Penguin and I alternate back and forth between something that we're digging. You can hit us up and chat in there along with our community, and you can find our podcast platforms of your choice for every episode of 80-Bit Podsmash that goes live Mondays at midnight. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, whatever your platform desire is, we're there. And if we're not somewhere you want us to be, let us know and we will put ourselves there. Give us a review on your favorite podcast platform so that the algorithms can bubble us up to get a little bit more attention and to grow our wonderful community. Please give us a like and a subscribe on your favorite social media platform. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Twitch TV channel. So please go check us all out and be made aware of our comings and goings, things we're digging and playing. I just did a Marvel's Avengers gameplay live stream with Gamertime. It was wonderful, and people like that are right out of our community. I did a Monster Hunter live stream with Technofib. That was also awesome and amazing, and those are both people in our community. I plan to do more interactive streams with folks, so I want you.
Sure.
Come
and
to our show.
people have direct influence on the kinds of things we stream. I stream Subnautica entirely because of a coworker who suggested that I play it. So those kinds of things are things that we love to take suggestions.
If you want it, we want it too. Let us know.
All right, so next week, July 12th, we will be talking about lighting in video games. So various technologies, ray tracing, reflections, and other lighting technologies used to make video games pretty from a lighting point of view. But
water, mirrors, shadows.
Yeah, all that stuff. We'll talk about it.
Ambient occlusion. Can't wait.
We will peel the layers back on all those words next week.
See you next week.